When we say working class, we think of people who have, lower income or, maybe paycheck to paycheck. But if you have a lot of money and you spend most of it on your bills and you have to go to work lest you lose everything, you're working class. You have to go to work.
Welcome to the Common Sense Philosophy channel. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, and you?
I'm splendid. Today the title of the video is the working class is in trouble. The working class is in trouble. So, have you been hearing about the economy and what's going on?
Yes, I have. It's nasty outside.
Yeah, it's got a lot of stuff going on out there. It's a lot of concerning things going on outside with people's jobs and their situations, with the whole thing of the shutdown, supposed to be opening back up. How you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, they said it was opening up, but is it really opened?
Right. So just waiting to see how all that plays out. It's real concerning, and really hoping that things will smooth out for the people and they'll be able to get back to work. Well, hold on a second. Some of them are already working. They'll start to get paid for their work, and things will work out in their favor. Also, I guess they're supposed to be going back and voting pretty soon too. So if they can have the vote, and the sooner they can get in there and do that, because I know the back pay is can get to like 6 years out. So hopefully they can get them in there and get a set time so they can work their way to their first paycheck and things of that nature. But that would be great. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to run this next clip, all right? So then we can talk about that.
Okay.
All right.
A discussion or discourse about classes, right? And so this person brought up working class. And I said, well, working class is anybody who has to go to work, right? So if you have money, like a lot of money, but you have a lifestyle in which you need to keep up, going to work to pay for that lifestyle, you're working class. Anybody who has to go to work is working class. When we say working class, we think of people who have, lower income or, maybe paycheck to paycheck. But if you have a lot of money and you spend most of it on your bills and you have to go to work lest you lose everything, you're working class. You have to go to work. So somebody with, a $50,000 a year salary, somebody with a $500,000 a year salary, they both got to go to work so they can continue to pay their bills. They're both working class. Working class is the class of people that got to work. Okay, now rich might be a little different. Rich is when your passive income pays for your active lifestyle, right? And wealthy is when your generations to come will not have to work. Okay, they may have to live a very different lifestyle, perhaps be more socialized, be more, in tune with charitable organizations, high society. But yeah, working class, that's everybody from, super low income to, $500,000 a year, whatever have you. If you're a millionaire and you got to go to work because you're going to lose whatever it is you have, you're working class. Working class is people with money too.
Yeah, that's very interesting what she was saying. She broke everything down from the different levels of income and what working class is from her perspective, which kind of makes sense. I want to say who she is. Her TikTok name is Money Nista. That's money with Nista, Money Nista. Go to her page and show her love. She's always talking about financial things, so I thought that clip was pretty interesting. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, she was explaining it in all the three different tiers of people and their finances. And working class is if you have to go to work to pay your bills, then you working class. I don't care how much money you make. It doesn't matter how much you make if the majority of the money that you work for goes towards your active lifestyle.
Right.
As soon as you don't go to work, you can't pay that stuff no more. And people need to know basic definitions, I think, of what things really are, because we like to put spins on things and change words and definitions. But the basics of things, we need to know what's working class, what's rich, what's wealthy, so that we can get our mind right and make changes to our life, or not changes to our life. Just lock in where we're at so we know that we can sustain our life.
Yeah.
Don't be confused on what level you're on. I think that's what's wrong with a lot of people. They don't think that they're working class. I think a lot of people finding out now that they are working class.
Yeah.
So,
it's people are learning their levels by what's happening. And as far as level is just where they're at right now, because you can always become bigger or you can lose a little here and there. But your basic area of what your income is and what you're working with, you should kind of understand it. What you can afford without putting yourself in a destructive area. So, it's something that they got to go through. Hopefully, I hope this doesn't last long because of the holidays. And I know, once again, it'd be good for people to start to get their checks back rolling, because the thing is, even if they have a nice house, nice cars, and the dog, the cat, the fences, whatever, all this stuff takes finance. So hopefully, losing those checks back to back can start to mess up the mortgage, mess up the car notes, mess up the insurance, mess up all these things. And before you know it, they're in a bad place. I know we had seen before, they said they got a letter to give to the people, but they're looking at that letter like that don't pay the bill. So it's a very interesting place for people to be in. So I got this other clip I'm going to show you real quick, and then we'll come back and talk about that, all right?
all right. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Last night, the Supreme Court temporarily allowed the Trump administration to withhold about $4 billion in SNAP money. The order was issued by Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who says the temporary decision was required so that the appeals court, lower court, can consider the government's arguments in full. It'll then go back to the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, everyday Americans are struggling with both hunger and financial stress as they become a political football in the shutdown fight. Last month, a nonprofit natural food store in New Jersey posted on social media that it was offering a temporary discount to SNAP participants to help tide them over while their funding had run out. But an hour later, they, along with other stores around the country, received an email from the government telling them that they weren't allowed to do that. John, what was your reaction when you got this message from the government saying you could not help SNAP recipients even if you wanted to?
I suppose I went through the stages of grief just very rapidly. So there was a moment of disbelief. There was, surprise, but mostly just shock because they give the legal reason why. They refer to the equal treatment rule. And I looked up the rule, and it's very obviously about non-discrimination, which, of course, everyone at the co-op completely agrees with. But we just never imagined that it would be construed to prevent us from helping people through a specific time of need, especially a specific time of need that was created by government action and inaction.
Why do you think this message was sent out?
Well, I am not entirely comfortable surmising all of the reasons why that might have happened. I do know that this administration has been very strong about trying to avoid anything that's seen as an abuse of the system. And so in the 15 years that I've been general manager of the co-op, we've received very few communications from the government about the SNAP program, except very routine things about like, oh, it's time to renew. It's time to renew your documentation on the program. So we received one communication shortly after the Trump administration took office that basically was put this poster up about fraud. And so we did. And then this communication. So those are the only two communications we've had on issues.
So this is really targeted government intervention, perverting equal opportunity laws on some level. Lisa, can you explain? Because to me, to someone who really values a free market and libertarian, I do not like the government saying how I can operate my business. And granted, you're a nonprofit.
What you think about that clip?
Yeah, I didn't know that was a law, that they couldn't help people in crisis. But I guess, I understand it because of the discrimination thing. It's like, if you're going to open it up for these people, you're going to have to open it up across the board and make this just your standard, because it would be picking and choosing who you're going to help.
Right.
Which is not right. So, but we hear people all the time, oh, I know my laws. Well, we didn't know that. We do not know that. And people are probably saying like, oh yeah, I don't know why these stores don't lower the price for these people. And then because they can't, they are literally not allowed to do this by law.
Exactly.
And we can't look the other way, because if we did, like I just said, we have to do it across the board. And a lot of other people, they wouldn't want that to be looked away. If somebody come break in the store, they need them to enforce the law. So that's what they're doing.
Right. And you know, when you look at it, like you think about the people in the airport, when the woman tried to give them tips, and then she couldn't give them the tips because they're federal workers that couldn't take the tips, and because that's illegal, they can't drop the prices, you can't tip them, you can't give them money, you can't give them side jobs because they're federal workers. You know, there's many perks of working for the government, but one of the downsides is when stuff like this happens, the government shut down, nobody can help you financially far as a job or anything like that, because it's illegal. So this guy named John at this store that he had, his co-op, he couldn't lower the prices for these people, even though he put it out that he would, because the government said no, because he's a nonprofit. He's a 501c3. You know, a lot of times people don't know what that is. It's kind of like a church, but let me give you more definition of a 501c3. It's a tax-exempt charitable organization approved by the Internal Revenue Service, which is the IRS. These organizations are organized and operated for specific purposes, including religious, educational, scientific, literal, charitable, public. But I want to go back to that religious. That's the church I'm talking about. Most churches are 501c3. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that, so you understand that churches are nonprofits. Their charitable definitions are broadly defined, including advancing education and things like that. They're tax deductible, and private interests, they cannot be operated or organized by private interests. And part of that is their net earnings cannot benefit there cannot benefit any private individual or shareholder. So that means they cannot change things for individuals. So, but just to wrap all this up, you know, this is common sense philosophy, and you just wondering, the working class is in trouble, or is everything gonna be all right? I'm not sure, but check this next clip out.
Damn granddaddy bought his house for a half-eaten lollipop and $1,000 in 1940. You turned around and flipped that bitch for $610,000 cash, right? You can't even begin to fathom what I'm going through now, trying to build some shit from the ground up. And in a minute, I get to bitching about, you know, how expensive everything is and how I'll probably never own a goddamn home. I get hit with all you got to do is. You know what that is? That's a motherfucker who look at you and go, all you got to do is. I hate a motherfucker like, all you got to do is invest your extra money in the stock market. What the fuck make you think I got extra cheese? I'm using all the cheese I got right now just to stay the fuck alive. Well, if that's the case, all you gotta do is get a second job, boy. Choke on this goddamn meat. Cause you real out of touch right now. You know, your goddamn granddaddy made a living counting sticks. He used to go to work and count sticks. And that motherfucker made enough cheese to afford a house. And here I am, day after day, breaking my goddamn body down, picking motherfuckers up out the truck. You know, 300 pounds is the very common goddamn weight nowadays. And it ain't evenly distributed either. And I'm doing this shit day after day. I think I got the right to be a little pissed off. Cause maybe I'm tired of fucking bouncing my daughter from crib to crib. Not having nowhere to really form no goddamn memories. It's all the fuck I want. I don't need a goddamn mansion, just a goddamn house. Where she can grow the fuck up. And motherfuckers always making excuses for these rich motherfuckers who just gaping us the fuck open, slamming that bitch off in there.